Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I know I look nothing like Pastor Joe, but it's really great to see that they're actually taking some time to celebrate their anniversary. So unfortunately they couldn't be here, and as much as we love Joe and Casey, I'm also really excited to be here this morning and be able to share a little bit with you as to what's on my heart today. But I have to first start off by telling you that it was definitely a busy week for me. Well, not exactly for me, but everyone else around me. First thing was, I don't know if you know, but our dear friends Peter and Sheila just had their baby a couple of days ago. So we have another Mateo in our community, which is exciting, the more the merrier. And I know that they've been thinking a really long time about what kind of name to give to their son, and they actually just decided a couple days ago, and his name is Mateo, which means a gift from God, and they truly believe that. So we actually have a card in the back if you want to sign and just say congratulations. I think it'd be really nice to give that to them, because definitely a special time in their lives, and I feel like I'm part of their family just celebrating for them. So that's the first thing that's happened, but also another, dear friend of ours, Misha and Rie, they just moved to North Carolina to start a new chapter in their lives. So a lot of different things are happening, especially this past week. But not only that, it was also my husband and I's anniversary yesterday. So we celebrated 6 years of marriage, of a blessed marriage, and it definitely truly feels like a blessing. I know that we call our marriages here in our faith movement a blessing, but I really do believe that it is a blessing that we got to celebrate, not just yesterday, but every day. But in light of our anniversary that we got to celebrate, I want to start off by telling you a story to kind of get a glimpse into our relationship and our marriage. And this just happened a couple weeks ago, but I have to tell you that my husband and I, we listen to Spotify. I don't know, raise your hand if you've ever used Spotify. You have. It's a music, and they have stuff for kids too. It's a music program, and with this music app, we kind of share our accounts, so we have to kind of watch what the other person's doing, because we can interfere with each other's music. But it's a really cool app, because once you have an account, you don't need to have any commercials, and you can pretty much choose any type of music you want to listen to. And one day, a couple weeks ago, I was actually sitting at home, and I was working on something on my computer. I think it might have been for church, I don't remember. But I was working on something, and I had this Spotify on. It was on my TV, playing some type of, coffee house music, some type of acoustic in the background, with some type of nice guitar. And I was at home by myself as my husband was studying, and I was just feeling very relaxed with this music that was going on in my house. And I felt so at peace as I was, working on my laptop at home. And then all of a sudden the music stopped, and it suddenly, changed. And I heard out of nowhere, ring around the rose. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? And with those types of kids songs, it was very creepy. And I thought, okay, my TV must have had some sort of, malfunction. I don't know what happened, but I ran over to the TV because it's also very loud. And as this, poor child, I don't know who they're recording, but it sounds very, very scary. I just start pressing pause on my remote, and I think, okay, I don't know what happened, but there must have been a glitch. Maybe I'll change it back to another playlist. And the moment I press pause, it unpauses and it keeps going. A pocket full of bows. And I was like, no, stop. And I keep pressing pause, but every single time I press pause, it unpaused, and it kept going as if, I really thought my TV was possessed at that point. And not only that, but I was so scared because I was the only person in my house. It's dark outside, and all of a sudden I'm getting very nervous, there must be a spirit in my house. I don't know what's going on. Not only that, but it is a really scary song to play And I get so creeped out by the smallest things that I eventually, I really had to block it out, but I was changing it back over and over, and eventually I was able to get another playlist on, and it stopped. My man, Ed Sheeran, I love him, he saves the day. But I put on an Ed Sheeran playlist, and I thought, okay, let me just calm down and forget this ever happened and pretend like there's not somebody else with me in my house. And I go back to my computer and I'm just sitting there for about 10 minutes trying to forget this crazy spiritual experience that I've had. And then, I'm telling myself, all right, God, please protect me, your parents, please be with me at this time. And I'm sitting there for 10 minutes just trying to pretend like it went away. But after 10 minutes, I start to have this revelation from God, I guess. I call my husband and I yell into the phone, "Did you change the music on our Spotify?" And I hear him laughing so hard in the background. Because our accounts are linked, wherever he is, he can change the music to whatever he wants, and I will hear it because you can listen onto other devices. And he eventually, he had a great time with this prank, but at the time I was so upset, and I was like, if you do that again, you will not be allowed to sleep in the house tonight. But, it was not funny at the time, well, kind of, but not really. But looking back now, I really appreciate my husband because he definitely makes my life interesting, and he makes my life so enjoyable. It definitely is a blessing. But with my husband, I don't know if you know him well enough, but he's definitely one person that really exemplifies what it means to be real and what it means to be authentic. And he'll tell you exactly who he is and what he's feeling if you ask. And he's definitely someone I look up to for that, because he is definitely an epitome of someone that tries to demonstrate authenticity, which is actually kind of what I wanted to share with you today. And this talk I wanted to share with you is called Let's Be Real. Let's be real. And it's specifically going to dive into what it means to be authentic, what it means to be sincere, why that is important, but also how we can do that in a church community. But first, I want to tell you what it means specifically in the dictionary if you look at what authenticity is. And when you look at the definition, it states it is not false or copied. That means genuine, and that means real. So if you're someone who is authentic, you are not false, you're not copying somebody else, but you are truly who you are in character. Also, I found this article that dives more into authenticity. It's from fastcompany.org, and they wrote this article, what does authenticity really mean? And I really like how they defined it. They say that it's about being consistent in word and deed, having the same fundamental character in different roles, and being comfortable with your past. So when you're someone who is authentic, you want to be someone who is consistent in what you say, consistent in what you do. You want to also have the same character no matter what environment you are put into, but that you are always going to stay the same. And not only that, but you are comfortable with your past, what you've been through, the struggles that you have endured, and being okay with that, and being okay to be confident in sharing that. And I really love that definition because it really exemplifies a lot of what it means to be authentic. So it's important to understand what it means to be authentic, especially in today's society, because it is definitely a difficult thing to do. Society's telling us to live a certain way, right? And our modern culture is telling us that we need to say certain things, we need to look a certain way, that we need to act like this or that in order to be socially acceptable, to be normal, right? In order to be normal by society, you need to look like this, you need to do that, and you need to say things like this, right? And because all these things around us are telling us how we should live and who we should be, we begin to bury our actual selves away, and we start to take on a certain role or a certain character that may be accepted by society, but does not really play into who we really are. And when we become less real and less authentic about who we are, it starts to become more difficult to have open and honest conversations about where we are currently at in our lives and the path that we need to take in order to grow. So this is one reason why actually we started our Wednesday night slam that we started for about a couple months now. And if you didn't know, we have it specifically for young adults, where it's a time that we can come together and share, slam, study, learn, and mingle, where it's faith-based conversations, but also a place where we can be honest, where we can be open and talk about exactly, what we feel about these topics and these situations. And this is why we started it, is because we need to create a space in our lives to have real and honest conversations. We tend to have fun with one another, and we tend to graze the surface of conversations that we have with our family, with our friends, or with our coworkers, with our fellow classmates. But how often are you really sharing with others how you are doing? And this is one of my pet peeves, this type of conversation where it goes, "Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Good, good," right? And then you move on. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves, actually, because I know that this person is really not asking me how I'm doing. It's just a way of saying hello. And if you go to any other culture, they don't do that. We only do that in America, right? Because we want to seem like we're asking how you're doing. We want to be authentic and to really try to just pose that question out there, but in the end, we're actually not. When someone asks you how you're doing, "Hi, how are you?" And then you start saying, "Oh, actually, I had a rough morning. I spilled my coffee all over myself, and then I tripped out the door, and then I dropped all my things." If you see their face, they're really not wanting to listen, right? They expect you to say good, and then ask you how they're doing, and then say good, and then move on, right? So this type of conversation, it's kind of scary because it shows that people are just trying to graze the surface of the conversation, but we don't make time to actually ask how people are doing. And it's important to take time and have those authentic conversations with people. And why is that so important? Why is it important for us to be authentic, to be sincere, and to be real, right? Imagine if you have a GPS, and specifically if I have my GPS on, I'm trying to find a place to go. I'm trying to put in my destination. But when you put in your destination, you also have to have your location setting on. Because you know that if you don't have your location on, the GPS is not going to know where you are. And if it does not know where you are, it cannot tell you how to get to your destination. And so this is important because your GPS cannot guide you unless it knows where you're currently at. And that is the same thing for our lives. That if we do not know and we're not fully honest with where we are at in our lives, we will not be able to understand what path we need to take in order to get to our destination. So please understand today that in order to get a fulfilling life, especially with our God and true parents included, you need to know where you're currently at in your life. That means what you're struggling with, what questions you have in your heart, what you are honestly feeling about the people or the situations around you. Because in your faith, if you are not real, and if you are not honest with where you are at, how are you going to be guided to where you need to go? And this is important because we all have a certain destination, especially in our faith and especially as children of God. But if we do not know where we are at and we are not honest with ourselves about where we're at, the path cannot be laid for us and we cannot be guided toward our destination. So some of you might actually resonate with that and say, yeah, I need to be more honest. I need to be more authentic. But some of you may say, oh, but I am honest. I am sincere. I'm so honest, I tell everyone what is on my mind all the time. But that is also not a good idea to do. And specifically, there is a motivational speaker. His name is Mike Robbins. And he has a TED Talk, if you want to look it up on YouTube. It's about 15 minutes, but he talks about the power of authenticity. And he specifically talks about how that is so impactful to be authentic and real with who you are. And he also wrote this book that is titled Be You, because everyone else is taken. And I find that to be very clever, by the way. Be you, be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And in this TED Talk, he specifically talks about how someone came up to him and said, okay, well, you're telling me to be honest, and you're telling me to be authentic, but I am. I tell everyone around me what I'm thinking. I'm openly honest with everyone, but I got fired from my job. And he had to really ask her this question: are you being authentic, or are you being obnoxious? And there is a clear difference with being authentic and with being obnoxious. And being openly honest is one thing, but that is not true authenticity. Authenticity is having the awareness of others around you and being willing to also be confidently vulnerable with others about yourself. And especially that's true, you have to be aware of the people around you, about where they're feeling, what they're thinking, what situation they're in. And then also being able to be confident in being vulnerable with them about your feelings and your situation. So this is key, especially being vulnerable with your emotions, with your struggles, and with your feelings. But how many of us know that it is definitely not easy to be emotionally vulnerable with people? And I'll tell you this funny story of when I was in middle school, and middle school is definitely the time where everyone is vulnerable and not in a confident way, right? I know that when I was studying in college, we were studying about education, and we learned that when they're babies, they turn into toddlers, and they're even in elementary school, they're not mature enough yet to have this understanding that there are other people around them. They only think that their mind and mentality is the one that exists. But once you get into the middle school, adolescent age, you start to learn and realize that other people have thoughts too that are different from yours, and that they also can think things about you. And that's why, especially in middle school and high school age group, it's so easy to feel like you always care about what other people think of you. And I remember in middle school, there's always, this popular group of people, right? And with the popular group, you always think, oh, they're the popular kids. Nobody likes to be like them, right? They're like this and that. But secretly, everyone kind of wants to be like them, right? You start to dress the same way they do. If they're starting to wear a certain type of sneakers, you're going to be wearing those also. You're not going to say it's because of them, but it really is. Because you're getting influenced by what they think of you and what other people think of you. And I specifically remember in middle school, I don't know if anyone's my age, in here, but I remember, when I was in middle school, it was really popular for the girls to scrunch their hair, and they would have like really tight curls and put so much gel into their hair, and it was called scrunching, and that was a thing to do back then. And because they did it, the popular group did it, everyone else started to do it too. So we, especially in that younger age, we become so influenced by what people think of us. And I remember this time where we were playing soccer in PE class, and with PE, you have to bring your own clothes, and you change into your own gym outfit, and then from there, you go and you play whatever sport. And so we were playing soccer that day, and how many of you know that when you're playing soccer in class, there's definitely two types of people. There's people who are like ready to be on offense. I'm gonna go and win this for my team. I'm gonna kick that ball into the goal, move out of the way because I am going to help make our team get to where it needs to be, right? And then you have the people on the defense. They're like, I'm gonna be back over here. You go ahead and you do your thing. I'm rooting for you. I'm defending back here, right? Don't worry about us. We're blocking this goal just fine, but most of the time you're actually just standing there waiting for the ball to come, right? So I was that person that was in the back, like, you go ahead, you guys got it. And I'm just standing there waiting for the ball, right? Which I completely didn't mind. I was okay with that. But there was this one time where I was defending, and as I'm standing there waiting for the ball, there was one of those popular girls that was behind me, and she calls me and says, Leilani. And I'm like, yeah. I think your pants are on backwards. And you know what I said back to her? They're supposed to be like that. And I look back at that now, and I specifically remember this instance because I was not okay with being who I really was. I was not okay, or I was not confident in being someone who made mistakes and being someone who, has faults sometimes. And because I was so scared of showing who I really was, I actually covered myself and tried to just, make up a lie. And how many of us know that we will throw in little lies here and there because we're afraid to show people who we really are? And we actually lie and we hide who we really are because we are afraid of how other people are going to perceive us. And this is, where people are scared to be authentic with others. We are afraid of being rejected if we are not who everyone expects us to be. We start to become afraid of being judged by others. And because of this, we start to put up these walls around us, and we start to block in our true feelings and our true emotions, and even our past. We try to block all those things so that other people won't have to see it. And this is especially evident in a church setting. In church, we encourage transparency, we encourage vulnerability, sincerity, and open and honest conversations. And we encourage people to be real with each other. However, in church, we so often encourage this from other people, and once other people begin to share about where they really are at and what they're really feeling, we begin to put them down for that. And in church, we start to set high standards for others to meet, but when they start to fall short, we decide to judge them rather than to lift them up. And we start to hear things, or people tell us, about what they're going through, and we start to say, oh, he's smoking again. Oh, she said that she doesn't know what to believe anymore. Oh, he broke his marriage, his blessing. Oh, she said that she's confused and lost, and she's not sure about all this church stuff or what this God and true parent stuff is about. And we hear this true, honest, open vulnerability from other people. And then as a church, we start to put them down for not being godly people that we expect them to be. And then we wonder why it's so hard to be real with each other. And when we do that as unificationists and as people of faith, we begin to get in the way of their faith journey once we put that judgment onto them. We start to claim that they're not good enough, that they're not godly enough, and we start to interfere with and block their own growing relationship with God and our true parents. And we start to judge them for being honest with their struggles and where their faith is currently standing. We begin to take away their value of being a child of God. And then we start to wonder why they say that church is not for them. So we have to understand that this is not our role in a church community. Our job is not to judge and condemn others just because they are not in the standard that we expect them to be at that time. But our job is to encourage and to support and to uplift them no matter what they're going through at the time. And why do we have to do this? Because none of us in this room are perfect. And none of us claim that we are even supposed to be where we're supposed to be. We all have our own baggage, and we all have our own faults, and we all have our own paths that maybe even we're trying to cover up. So this is especially evident in just about every church. And even in the Bible, if you look at the 1 Corinthians, and if you don't know the 1 Corinthians, the story behind it is that it is actually a letter that is written to the Corinth church by Apostle Paul. And this was written about 50 years after Jesus' crucifixion. And there was a city called Corinth, and it was prosperous. They were doing very well. They had a few churches there, and they had, their main church, which is, the Corinth church. And Apostle Paul, he actually had an experience where he felt like now he needs to serve Jesus and he needs to serve God in that way. And with this city of Corinth, as prosperous as they were, they started to have a lot of separation and a lot of judgment, because a lot of people started to misconstrue what it meant to be religious. And they started even doing certain acts like things of sexual immorality in the name of God. And Apostle Paul saw this, and people would start coming up to him saying, our church is starting to divide. All these things are starting to separate because there's so much confusion as to what needs to be practiced. And he actually talked to them. He was kind of like their preacher or their pastor, and he really tried to talk to them and share about, where they're supposed to go, but that word didn't really go anywhere. And so he actually decided to write this letter to the church, this long letter, and this is actually what 1 Corinthians is about. This is a letter from Apostle Paul. And specifically in chapter 4, if you read it, he says to the church, I care very little if I am judged by you or by any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. My conscience is clear, but that does not make me innocent. It is the Lord who judges me. And this is important to understand because he specifically says that we should not care if we are judged by other people. We should not care if, we are even judging ourselves. We should not even judge ourselves for where we've been and what we've been through. But the only person who can is God, because he knows where you've been, and the only judgment he would have is love for you to continue growing into who he wants you to be. And so as a church, we need to focus less on other people, and we need to focus more on ourselves and how we are doing in our relationships with God. And specifically, True Father even said that the power of religion is the love that overflows from it. Religion is not supposed to be a place, church is not supposed to be a place of judgment and of setting high expectations for other people, but it is a place that is supposed to overflow with love and with warmth and with acceptance. And so I want our church to be a place where people can feel that they can have authentic, open conversations and be honest with who they are and not have to be condemned for that. And I want to also have everyone understand that we are all not perfect and we're on our own journeys of faith, and each journey specifically looks different. So, we talked about being authentic and how that sometimes can be difficult because, we all have our own walls that we're putting up, and we're afraid to be judged by others. But sometimes we're actually not being judged by others, but we're actually judging ourselves. And then we think other people are judging us when it's actually coming from us. Oftentimes we start to compare ourselves with other people around us, how they're doing, or by what people around us have that we don't, and we begin to look at our faults, and we start to look at what we lack, which is something that is very dangerous. We start to think, oh, she has a great marriage, but I can't even find someone to be with. Oh, he has such a successful job and makes it look so easy, but I'm just trying to make ends meet. Oh, her family looks like they have it all together, but it's even hard for my family to sit together at the dinner table without arguing. And we start to think about this, about ourselves, and we start to become our own judge. and we put ourselves down and we say that we're not good enough. And we also mistakenly think that other people are judging us when we're actually putting it on ourselves. And we begin to think and say things like we're not good enough. And we start distancing ourselves from God and also from those around us that God might even be using to help us. We think of ourselves as less, and we start to forget that other people are actually having their own battles too. Yeah, you might have a great job, but maybe he's struggling elsewhere that you just can't see. So I want to tell you today that you are just as important, you are just as needed, and you are just as valuable as anybody else, no matter what you are going through, because you have been created and designed as a unique and one-of-a-kind aspect of who God is. It does not matter what shortcomings you have or what you are lacking in your life. The only thing that matters to God is that you are there and that you are present and alive and trying, because you matter to him. You have to understand that he knows that you are all that he has. And you mean so much more to him than what you could ever dream. And the fact that you already have heard the word of God through our two parents gives you so much more value than you think you even know. So just like Mike Robbins says, he says, be you because everyone else is taken. The moment that you try to be like someone else and copy someone else, or the moment you try to change yourself because you don't want to be honest with who you are, the world loses that specific, one-of-a-kind part of God's personality. Why do you have to be someone else when you're so special already just the way you are?
Amen.
And when we see that others are trying to have a real and open conversation with us, we also need to remember that we need to lift them up for that and help guide them to their destination, not discredit their value. So today we talked a lot about authenticity, and I know that in the next couple of weeks, our Pastor Joe is going to also be sharing a little bit more on this topic of being authentic, being real, and being sincere. But I really want to encourage you, starting from today, to start having open and honest conversations with what you're going through right now. But that conversation first needs to start with yourself, and then it needs to start happening with other people. And when someone starts to get real with us, it is our job to support them and to strengthen them and to love them, because that is what God would do for us. And lastly, do not be the one to judge yourself, because understand that in reality, we all have to go through our own battles, and we all have to go through our own course, and we have our own baggage to carry. But we just might not see everyone else's. So trust that God will work through your sincerity. And actually, if you didn't know, I believe at one of Chu Father's messages early in the morning, he specifically said that one of his favorite Chinese characters was sincerity. And he says specifically, give what you have to others with your sincere heart. So be authentic and be sincere and be real with other people, because when you do that, you will have taken your first step towards your destination in your faith journey. So I encourage you this week to be authentic, to have authentic conversations with yourself, with where you're currently standing, with what you're currently feeling, and then to have that with others. And then when we see that other people are having that conversation with us, we make sure that we definitely love them and support them. Please join me in prayer. Our dearest beloved Heavenly Parent and our two parents, we are so excited to be able to have the blessing and the opportunity to hear and understand your words through our two parents that they have given us. And now it's time to actualize that. But it's very difficult to be the person that you want us to be sometimes, because there is still so much sin that is going on in the world, and so much of that is affecting our mentality. We have a culture, we have a society that is telling us to be all the wrong things and to say that is okay. But we know that your word is so much stronger and that your word needs to be implemented in society. We need to realize that we should not become like them, but they need to become like us, and that we need to start being real and honest and open with who we really are. That we are your children, that we have heard your word through our true parents, and that we want to make your vision and your world a reality. But we cannot do that if we cannot be honest with who we are. That we can't do that if we're not accepting of who we are and our past and where we've been. We have to recognize our faults and our shortcomings, because only through that we can be open to grow, we can be open to change, and we can be open to the path that you are starting to lead in front of us. We know that our destination is where you are, is to be home with you. But if we don't have our location setting on, if we do not know where we are currently at in our life, how are we supposed to know how to get there? I pray, Holy Father, that we can start to become more authentic, we can start to be more sincere and more real and more honest and open with who we are. And not only that, but to be courageously and confidently vulnerable with people around us. We pray that you can give us the strength to do that, the strength and the knowledge to understand that we are really the culture that the world should have, and we should start standing strong in that and start being confident in our character and start to be vulnerable with our emotions and our feelings and our thoughts with others. And I pray as a community, especially as a church, and especially, in religion in general, we know that it is meant to be a place of love, that is meant to be a place that is overflowing with your warmth. And I pray that our community and our church can be able to do that, so that we don't have to hear anybody say anymore that church is not for them when they start to feel judged, when they start to feel not good enough. I pray that we can have open conversations with each other, that we can invite you into that, but that also we can lift each other up so that we can realize we are on this path together to make your home here on this earth. I'd like to pray for all these things in all of our names.